Well, you know, the thing that I'm most grateful for, when I really come down to it, is the fact that the greatest skill you could have as a percussionist when I started was naivete. If I had been required to have a background in an established discipline that had clearly defined parameters for success and advancement, the way, for example, a violinist necessarily does, I would have become a doctor. I was intrigued by percussion because it was so open, and because literally the first piece I played was Stockhausen Cyclus, one of the most difficult pieces written for solo percussion. But all you needed to know to play Stockhausen Cyclus is what a marimba looked like and what a vibraphone looked like, and you put them together, and then you picked up a set of sticks and you looked and you saw what Stockhausen asked you to do, and you played one note. And then you figured out what to do next. And the piece, in essence, doesn't demand anything more than an open frame of reference and an ability to solve the problems. But that's not how other instruments really operate. I mean, I think to play, you know, another instrument well, you have a large amount of kind of pre-existing expertise to digest before you can advance to sort of, in quotes, real music. But as a percussionist, anybody, and that means anybody listening to this, can address real life musical issues. So, as I said to you in our first class, sit and listen. You are already practicing the skill set of a percussionist. As I said to you in our third class, line up 4 glasses of water and try to play a scale. You're engaging in a physical language that is a percussionist, and it is not different qualitatively from what any percussionist who appears on a concert stage would ever do. So you are a percussionist the instant you think like a percussionist, the instant you make a percussion sound, the instant you use your ears to connect the sounds of the outside world to the sounds of the inside world, you're a percussionist. Percussion is not so much an instrumental discipline as it is a system of wisdom acquisition. You acquire the ability to make sense of noises, and if you do that, you're a percussionist. You make sounds by finding everyday objects, and you create sounds from them. If you do that, you're a percussionist. You create textures. You wonder what would happen if I played this thing this way. If you ever do that, you're a percussionist. If you ever wonder what this noise means and how I can use it to understand my life, you're a percussionist. And if you put all of these things together to create a language, you are really speaking the language of percussion. You know, I think the interesting thing about contemporary percussion music is that basically the interesting thing lies in the way it asks questions. And so a performer of Xenakis Safa, for example, has a set of questions that Xenakis posed in 1975. Well, you know, a bunch of problems to solve, in essence. And each percussionist who plays that piece will solve those problems with different instruments and different techniques, and in some cases you have to invent techniques and invent instruments to solve those problems. But because the piece is a response to such specific questions, there's a kind of kinship. And one recognizes actually an ingenious solution to a certain kind of problem in Safa because you understand how thorny the question was in the first place. So it's not as though percussion instruments, even though we are in our infancy, and as I said, we are in the wild, wild west of our development, it's not as though we don't have standards, because the questions that prompt a musical response by a percussionist are so specific and so acute that we understand when we see, or hear rather, a good answer to one of those questions.